I don't age, I level up.
I'm only 39 years old with 33 years experience.
On March 10th, 2026, the internet's favorite immortal posted a video from his birthday in Hawaii. He looked into the camera, skin bronzed, fists held high, and uttered 5 words that seemed like a biological fact. I don't age, I level up. He was a 6-time world champion, a Hollywood king, a man so mythologized that millions believed he had personally counted to infinity twice. But 9 days after that video was posted, the level up ended. On March 19th, the man who supposedly had no pulse, only a drumbeat of victory, took his final breath in a Kauai hospital. The world mourned the Texas Ranger. They shared the memes. They joked that death only finally gathered the courage to visit him because Chuck was sleeping. What happens when the man who is the world's symbol of invincibility faces an enemy he cannot roundhouse kick into submission? What happens when a man spends $2 million not on mansions or private islands, but on a desperate decade-long war to save his wife from a medical procedure that nearly dissolved her from the inside out? We see the black belt, we see the beard, we see the legend, but behind the curtain of the most famous tough guy in history lies a brutal, quiet tragedy. A man who spent his final years retreating from the very spotlight that made him a god, haunted by a grief that no amount of martial arts mastery could ever block. For over 20 years, Chuck Norris has been a prisoner of a joke. In the mid-2000s, the Chuck Norris facts transformed a serious martial artist into a digital deity. It was a global phenomenon that turned his name into a synonym for omnipotence. If Chuck Norris fell in water, he didn't get wet. The water got Chuck Norris. It was a golden cage. To the world, Chuck was no longer allowed to be a human. He wasn't allowed to be tired. He wasn't allowed to be sick. And most cruelly, he wasn't allowed to be vulnerable. The industry that made him a star in The Way of the Dragon and Missing in Action eventually demanded he stay frozen in time, a perpetual 1980s action figure. But while the internet was busy laughing at how Chuck Norris's tears could cure cancer, Chuck Norris was sitting in a hospital room watching his wife Gina suffer through agonizing tremors and kidney failure after a routine MRI contrast injection. He wasn't a god then. He was a husband watching his world collapse, realizing that his fame was a shield made of paper. How does the strongest man on earth cope with the ultimate powerlessness? To understand the silence of those final 9 days in Hawaii, we have to look past the Walker Texas Ranger badge. We have to go back to the grit. Ryan, Oklahoma in the 1940s was not a place of glory. It was a place of survival. The boy the world would one day worship wasn't born a warrior. He was born Carlos Ray Norris, a shy, stuttering child who was so invisible he felt like a ghost in his own skin. He didn't have a black belt, he had a target on his back. His childhood home was a war zone of a different kind. His father, Ray, was a man lost to the bottom of a bottle, a ghost who drifted in and out of the house, leaving behind nothing but the smell of stale whiskey and the weight of disappointment. Back to the 3 bus rides to find work, back to the mother, Wilma, who carried the burden of 3 sons on shoulders that never broke but always felt the strain. Back to the moment a young Carlos watched his father walk out for the last time, leaving a void that no amount of muscle could ever fill. His ambition wasn't born of ego, it was a debt, a promise made to a mother who sacrificed everything. He didn't just want to be strong, he had to be strong, so that no one could ever make him feel invisible again. He crawled through the frozen rivers of poverty and ate the raw liver of rejection, fueled by a singular burning hunger to prove that the shy kid from Oklahoma could become a king. But here is the irony of the legend. Chuck Norris conquered the martial arts world. He conquered the box office. He became a cultural icon. Yet for decades, he was denied the one thing an artist craves: respect. Critics sneered at his acting. The serious elite of Hollywood looked at his films as low-brow violence. He was a champion of the people, but a joke to the critics. His rejection became a cultural phenomenon, eventually manifested as the very memes that celebrated him. The memes were a backhanded compliment. They loved the idea of Chuck Norris, but they rarely respected the man. He spent half his life trying to be taken seriously as an actor, only to be turned into a cartoon character by the digital age. How does a man who has everything, the ranch in Texas, the beautiful family, the global adoration, become the loneliest occupant of his own life? In his later years, Chuck began to vanish. He gave up the movie roles. He turned down the massive paychecks. He retreated to his ranch, becoming a ghost once more. It wasn't because he was finished with Hollywood. It was because he was consumed by a private war. He spent millions of dollars on lawsuits and medical treatments, fighting a healthcare system that he believed had poisoned his wife. The man the world said couldn't be touched was spending his nights researching toxicology reports and praying for a miracle. He was the richest prisoner of a tragedy that no one wanted to talk about because it didn't fit the meme. How does a man who has everything, the hero on screen, become the person who can't save the person sitting right next to him? Before we can understand the shocking silence of those final 9 days in Hawaii, we have to look at the secret he carried behind the camera for 50 years. Because the Chuck Norris the world worshipped, that was just the character. To find the truth, we have to go back. Back to a recruitment office in 1958. Back to the Air Force uniform that felt too big. Back to the moment a young man in Korea saw a martial arts demonstration that either saved him or destroyed the boy he used to be.